Life has a way of bringing us to our knees before teaching us how we soar. Hello, I'm Vaishali Patil, and I welcome you to Let's Talk, where we uncover the raw, real stories that change lives. Today, we are diving into an extraordinary journey of transformation that proves how adversity can become our greatest teacher. Our guest, Chris Freer, went from building a business empire to facing a life altering MS diagnosis that brought him to his knees. But here's what makes this story different. Chris didn't just survive, he revolutionized his entire approach to health and well being. From wheelchair to walking, from despair to empowerment. Get ready for a story that might just change the way you think about how your own power can transform your life.
Welcome to Let's Talk, Chris. It's a pleasure to have you today. Would you take through your life before you were diagnosed with MS? How was the picture before?
I thought life was really good. I was a businessman. Well, I still am a businessman, but I was quite successful. I had the car, I had the house, I had the holidays, and things that I only really thought about making money. Really, I was in the license trade. I had several pubs and a couple of clubs to my name. And yeah, in my view of the world back then, life was good. Life was good.
So, yeah, you were quite good with your business and the way life was going on.
Yeah, it was not a particularly healthy lifestyle, if you like. But I thought the 2 or 3 holidays that I was able to take each year would compensate for the 16-hour days that I used to do, really, and the probable poor life choices that I was making as well. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Long working hours, I guess. When you learned and you received your diagnosis that you have been, diagnosed with MS, what was your first reaction when you got that report?
Well, I mean, I revisit that day quite a bit, really. It came for me after many years of going to the GP with these weird and wonderful symptoms that was happening to me, only to be told that it was stress. Um, when the news was delivered to me and he was a really nice fella. He was a lovely neurologist. I'd fortunately I'd been able to go private. Um, when he delivered the news to me, one of the things he told me not to do was visit Doctor Google, um, which of course I did straight away because I didn't know anything about multiple sclerosis. To be quite honest with you, I didn't know anyone who had it. And of course, I visited Doctor Google, which was fairly in its infancy, and of course, I discovered horrendous stories around this condition that I had. And to be quite honest with you, it frightened the life out of me, really. Yeah. Mm.
And when you had to disclose this news to your family, how did you feel, or how did your family take this news?
Well, I didn't, to be quite honest with you. My first wife, she was in attendance so she knew about it. But my children and I have 4 children. They were quite young, and I wanted to shield them from that to start with, without a doubt. And I they didn't really tell anyone. I kept it to myself, to be quite honest with you. Yeah.
I guess just keeping to yourself and using Dr. Google really didn't help you. When you got the news initially, how was your each day and how you were facing?
Well, I tried to carry on normally, but people were noticing differences in me, and I started to tell people really, and there was quite a lot of shock around that. And I remember a particular day when I was in my club and I had a function suite there, and I had a particular function going on at the weekend, and I was making things ready in there, and a member came in and said, "I've just found out that you've got multiple sclerosis." And I was actually behind the bar, and I said, "Yeah, yeah, what of it?" And they said to me, "Oh, my dad had that." And, I was still in my infancy really, and I said, "Oh, your dad had it. How is he now?" And she went, "Oh, it killed him." And that was something I did not want to hear. And I think that really started a chain reaction for me really, I think. Yeah.
Okay. Do you think you had some subtle symptoms, before you actually were diagnosed, and you neglected, or you didn't think it was important or address? Your body was giving you some signals, any symptoms?
Without a doubt, I had symptoms, for several years before I got the diagnosis, and I did I used to go to my GP, and he basically said to me that the symptoms that I was experiencing were due to stress. I had things like bladder urgency, um, numbness in my fingers and my arms, left leg and left foot, um, sometimes wouldn't obey the signals that I wanted it to do. And they'd come and go, but my GP was adamant that they were all stress related. Um, and and I thought, well, this is something I've just got to put up with then, because I can't really change my lifestyle, because I had this driving, burning desire or need to make money, because I thought that was the important thing in life really then. So I kind of just lived with that at the time, yeah, until of course I became very ill.
So, what was the initial course of action that you were taking towards the treatment of MS?
Well, when I got diagnosed, Doctor Bradbury, he said to me, "Look, we've got some really powerful disease modifying drugs. It's going to slow down the progress of this condition for you." And they put me on a drug called Rebif, and it's an interferon beta 1A, I believe. Don't quote me on that, but I was taught how to inject myself 3 times a week with this drug, and I had some steroid treatments, and I was also offered drugs like baclofen, gabapentin, and pregabalin for the pain elements of the condition. Um,
You mentioned you felt like your life went into a free fall. So, what was that like for you?
um, it's still, I mean, it's many years ago now, and it still makes me feel quite uneasy remembering those times. And I often feel like it sounds as if I'm being very dismissive of my first wife, really, and I'm not, because many people that get diagnosed with these kind of long term conditions, their marriages fall into disrepair, if you like. And I felt that I wasn't getting any support um, from her. She didn't want to make the lifestyle changes that I felt I needed to do, because I was affected quite a lot by fatigue. And I was struggling to do the sort of hours that I used to do. Um, I think I think as well there was a bit of a knock-on effect because before I knew what was the matter with me, I'd kind of carry on. But when I knew that I had this condition, if you like, it kind of started to take over me really. It definitely affected my thinking and my approach to life really. And I couldn't understand why my wife wasn't prepared to make the changes that I wanted to make in my working life and lifestyle really. And it kind of started this process of anxiety for me really because I became extremely anxious about the future. How was I going to maintain the lifestyle that I'd built for my family? How was I going to continue to provide my children with all the things I thought were important in their life? Um, and also, how was I going to keep my wife happy, really? So anxiety became an almost daily event for me, really. Yeah.
Do you think after people came to know about your condition, did it change your relationship, business relationships, and your personal relationship?
It definitely affected my personal relationship. Yeah, absolutely. Business wise, probably not. I think from my point of view, I think I felt more vulnerable actually. The pub environment and club environment can be, and especially where I had my pubs and stuff, it can be quite a volatile environment. And I didn't feel so capable of dealing with those sorts of situations anymore. But I think mainly it affected my personal life really more than anything.
After this event, how do you look at life, of your relationship with your business, your money, and your health? So, when you put everything in perspective, what do you think about it?
Well, back then, I mean, I felt that I had no control. I didn't feel that the drug that I was put on to slow the condition down was having any effect on me at all. It felt as if it was accelerating, to be quite honest with you. As my symptoms worsened, um, my first wife decided that she wanted a divorce. It was yeah, a massive blow for me. Um, and I slipped into what I now understand and recognise as depression, really, and I think I became quite difficult to live with, really. I think I definitely wasn't coping with living with myself, without a doubt.
What's your take now on relationship with business and money? How do you feel? What was important in life? Money or just taking care of yourself?
Oh my god! I mean, now my outlook and attitude towards chronic health, if you like, is 100% different to how it was back then. Yeah, without a shadow of a doubt. I am still in business. I'm no longer in the license trade, but I tend to follow my purpose now, in the way that I make a living. Money is definitely not my driving factor. Obviously, I have to earn money to pay bills, but there's purpose behind what I do now. Um, the end result is empowerment for other people, if you like, using the experiences that I've had in my life, and the qualifications that I've now got. I've retrained, so I look at life in a completely different way now. My health is my wealth, and that sounds silly for me to say, living with an incurable condition like multiple sclerosis, but I truly believe that I'm in my best health now.
I think that moment came into your life to make you realize, there's something more than money to your life.
Without a doubt. Without a doubt.
At what point of time did you feel, you wanted to make some changes to your lifestyle? And what were the major changes that you had to do to, get that shift from your anxiety, depression, and come out of the regular medication that you were taking?
I think I think at this point I need to share part of my story really. And I mean it's the darkest time of my life really. With divorce on the horizon, I felt that there was no point in living anymore. And in 2007, I went out and I had a serious attempt at ending my life. The thing, if you like, the thing that saved my life that day was a thought. And my chosen method of dispatch was to go under the front wheels of a heavy goods vehicle. And whilst I was waiting to go under the wheels, I had a thought, and I wondered what effect this action that I was about to take, what effect was it going to have on the lorry driver's life? And I had this moment of compassion, really, and I hesitated, and I bounced off the side of the lorry. It was that close. I was hurt. I was bruised. There was no broken bones, but I knew then that I needed some help. Um, but I also think it was my wake up moment. It's not something I'm recommending for anybody, and I'm telling my story so that other people don't go through how I felt really. But it kind of woke me up to a different way of thinking really. And I started to look for a different approach to life really. You know,
What major changes you had to do in terms of lifestyle, to move on to the next step?
well, after that shift in my thinking, obviously I got sectioned, to be quite honest with you, and it wasn't something that I wanted in my life, and fortunately, a family member came and got me out of hospital and took me into their care for a short period of time. They put me on antidepressants, and again, it wasn't really what I wanted. I had already been taken off of the disease modifying drugs because they told me that I was secondary progressive now, and that back then there was no drugs available for me. But I was looking for answers. I was looking for one, why I had compassion for the lorry driver, and I'd never really had any compassion for myself. Why I hadn't even considered my children's feelings in the action I was about to take. I actually truly believe that everyone would be better off without me in their life, And I shifted my focus, and I started to search for positive stories around MS, and funny enough, I started to find people that were living with this condition in a proactive way. And I'd decided that that is how I wanted to be. I wanted to mirror what they were doing. And so I looked at what they were doing, and most of them were talking about dietary changes that they'd made in life. And I discovered a diet that was devised. It was the first MS diet, really. It was devised by Dr. Roy Swank, and he recommended removing red meat from your diet, keeping your saturated fats as low as possible, no eggs, no dairy, no all of this sort of stuff. And I started to follow the Swank diet really. A lot more vegetables, a lot more whole foods, and I felt like it was making a difference. I felt as if I was starting to take control of what was going on.
So, with the changes that you made to your diet, they straight away started showing some results to you.
No, not
Okay.
straight away. No, no. It was over a long period of time. I mean, it's not it's not realistic to expect, reversal, if you like, really quickly with these sorts of things. I mean, it this illness or this condition that I had built up in my body over a long period of time. It was going to take a long period of time to undo the damage that had been done.
So, along with changes to your diet, what other measures were you taking in making your changes to your lifestyle?
Well, I also decided that I was going to start to move and exercise and just take a completely different approach to how I'd been living my life. I was gonna I cut alcohol out of my diet. I looked at food instead of as something to eat, to calories or whatever. I looked at food as nutrition. It was going to help and heal my body, the foods that I was putting into my body. So I started to really source the best possible food that I could. And I also played with my diet as well. I'd cut things out and introduce them and then see what effect it was having on me. I started, I'm going to say I started to really listen to my body. For me now, my diet consists of it's mainly plant based whole food. I do eat fish. I don't eat any meat at all, and I'm not recommending that as a diet for anybody. I think what you need to do is to find what works for you, really. You know.
I guess so. I think everybody's body reacts differently. Everybody needs a different diet. So it has to be personalized, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I had no refined sugar in my diet at all.
I remember you mentioning you were bound to wheelchair for a period of time. And I would like to know what are the steps that you took because today you're back on your feet and out of the wheelchair. So, what effort did you take to come off from that state?
Yeah. What effort did I take, and what effort do I still take? I should really let you know that in 2008, my neurologist, it wasn't the guy that diagnosed me anymore. He he ordered an enhanced MRI scan for me, and when we got the results of that, they found that there were new active lesions in my brain, and he told me then that I was secondary progressive multiple sclerosis. And in view of my mental health issues, I really don't like using that terminology, but I can't think of anything better. But in view of that, he told me to prepare for a wheelchair by 2012 because, in his opinion, that's where I would be. And to all intents and purposes, he was right. I mean, I was still working on my diet. I was still looking at positive approaches towards my health, but there was a lot of damage there. Strangely, I mean, I'm also going to say that a major event happened in my life in 2010 where I met and married the absolute love of my life, and she had a profound effect on me as well. I still can't understand why she she chose to take on someone with a long term condition, but I'm eternally grateful for that. But I did use a wheelchair quite a bit. Most of my time spent outdoors. I'd use a wheelchair because I still used to fall over a lot. I've broken fingers. I've cut my head open, done my nose once as well, and it was safer for me outside. But I was still working on moving. I was still doing sit to stands. I was still working on self, and it's been a slow process. Um, I'd go and see my neurologist every year in the chair, because I don't know what it's like where you are, but my hospital, they seem to put the surgeries in the furthest place away from the car park for people with walking difficulties and broken bones for some reason. I don't know. But the last time I saw my neurologist was 2017 when I walked into his surgery. And he was quite shocked that sadly, and this is the bit that I find really sad, he wasn't particularly interested in the things that I'd done to get myself out of that chair.
Chris, do you think diagnosed with MS has been an opportunity for you to change your life and a second chance and have some purpose in your life? How has that helped you? What is the positive side?
I now see MS. In fact, I see chronic health conditions, to be quite honest with you, as an opportunity. It's been very hard. I wish to have been able to learn the things that I've learned without having to go through all the despair, really, of the condition. But I've learned a great deal from it, and the simple fact of the matter is that I'm probably healthier now with multiple sclerosis than I was before I knew I had it. Um, because I live a choices based lifestyle now. I think about the things that I consume, both through my mouth and through my eyes and through my ears. Um, I'm very particular about the food that I eat. I don't eat any processed or ultra processed food at all. I tend to be very selective about what I read, listen to in social media and stuff like that, because there's a lot of misinformation out there. I believe, I definitely tuned into all the negatives that were connected to condition I had in the beginning, and I'm going to say it set me up nicely for my descent into depression, really, um, and believing that I had no control, without a doubt. Yeah.
So now you feel you have got more control over your life and the choices that you make.
I think I've got total control now. Um, I definitely lead a life that's from the out, like the inside out approach to life. I don't sign into all the stuff that's going on out there that I've got no control over. I only look at stuff that I am in control of, and I truly believe that we can heal from within. Yeah.
You are a personal coach now, after what you have gone through and helping people to come out of such conditions and, help people make choices. Could you tell more about your coaching program and what you really do in those programs?
Okay, well, I've retrained. I'm a qualified hypnotherapist and NLP practitioner. I'm not a health professional in any way, and I don't give health advice as such. But what I work on very much is that internal language that we all use. When we're describing ourselves to ourselves, really, and that language is often very negative. And we say things to ourselves that we probably would think we were being horrible if we were saying it to someone else. So I tend to work on that kind of stuff. I I'm quite trauma event based as well, because, and I do use the terminology events in our life now more than trauma. We all have events in our life that start to form our reality, the way that we see the world working and how we work within that world. And often these lasting impressions that we have are not, well, they're definitely not facts. definitely not facts. And they're often they're not our beliefs either. They're someone else's beliefs that have been installed in us about ourselves. So that's how I work with people now. And when people start to realize these facts, and these are facts that we can control our view of the world, view of our reality, they're able to move their lives into a place that they feel more comfortable living.
But that's really amazing, and the changes that you have made and trying to help people in this condition, that transformation is really amazing. Anybody who's going through chronic illnesses or people who don't know much about MS, would you like to throw some light on what are the initial symptoms people should not neglect, and what attention they should pay to their body, what their body is telling?
I think anyone that's experiencing symptoms that are alien to them, if you like. I mean, my first symptoms with multiple sclerosis, and that's a really hard question to answer because and I've worked with, good God, I've worked with hundreds of people with multiple sclerosis. I used to run a wellbeing centre for people with MS. And I'm going to say honestly, I've never met anybody who's got the same set of symptoms. You know, there's similarities, and there's definitely knowledge and there's a knowing, but MS kind of affects people in many different ways. But I suppose vision disturbances are very, very common with multiple sclerosis. Tingling in the fingers are also very common. Bladder, for some reason, is also quite a common symptom. So if you're experiencing anything like that, please don't think that you've got multiple sclerosis, but get it checked out. Get it checked out. Go to your optician. I mean, opticians often are the first medical professional that puts people on the road to discovering what's the matter with them, because they can see the swelling behind the optic nerve and stuff like that. I put that in a bad way, didn't I, Dad? But I wouldn't ignore anything, and I think it's the same from many of the chronic health conditions that we see in our communities today. Please don't ignore them.
I think it's best not to ignore what your body is saying. And even, maybe sometimes we just feel that it's something very small and we just let it go, not address it.
Yeah, I mean, I used to think I was Superman. I used to think that illness was something that happened to other people, not me. You know, I could keep going and it would be all right. I got to be honest with you. I still got that belief a little bit in me that I'm still Superman. And
You are a Superman, I would say. Where you've come out from your wheelchair.
uh,
What you're doing is amazing, trying to help people. So in a way, you are a Superman.
well, thank you so much for saying that to me. I didn't quite mean that because I'm remembering last year I got a chest infection, which I still ignored. And I thought, no, it's going to be all right. I'm all right. I'm going to get through this and everything. Well, I didn't. And my poor wife couldn't. I was on the floor. I couldn't get up, and I got taken into hospital with this chest infection. I think my oxygen level when the paramedics turned up was 52%. I think, and yeah, there was no arguments. I was taken off. So I still got that feeling Superman kind of thing, which I'm ashamed to say, really. I don't think of myself as a Superman with this condition. It's been and still is hard work, clear thinking that keeps me in a healthy state, if you like. So I really appreciate you saying I'm Superman, but I really am not.
What message would you like to give to our listeners in terms of, awareness and moving forward? What changes do you think should be made so that people are aware, and how they deal with the chronic illnesses?
Well, I want people to know that they have a lot more control and power over their health than I think we believe. In my day, when I grew up, and it's quite a few years ago since I was born, but I was brought up to believe that doctor knew best, and I'm not saying that they don't now. I'm not saying that, but I think we have very much given over our innate power to heal to someone else now, and there's a lot of things that we can do for ourselves to improve our health. What you're eating, you kind of know, don't you, that it's really nice to eat it, but it's probably not nourishing or my body in any way or providing me with any nutrients, but we still eat it, don't we? Or we drink it, or we don't get out and move, and we don't get out into nature, and we don't get out in the fresh air, and there's lots of things that we can do for ourselves to aid our best health, really, I think.
When you were diagnosed with MS, and if you had to talk to your younger self, how would you talk to yourself then?
That's a really good question. I'd have to say, definitely don't visit Dr. Google. Definitely don't do that. Find out the facts, and do you know what? Know that you're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Because back then I didn't think I was.
Yeah, so having that positive mindset does help.
Well, I think so. I think, I mean, look, I'm not positive all the time. Something that I advise people that work with me often to do is keep a journal. If you're living with a chronic health condition, it's those small wins, it's those little gains that are the important bits, because you're not likely to get a massive change. Um, so keeping a journal of, you know, any of your wins, and I think I remember one of the biggest things for me was when I was able to start to wiggle my toes in my left foot. You know, sounds really small, doesn't it? Wiggle my toes in my left foot, but I couldn't do that. And when that happened, it set off this chain reaction for me, because I thought, well, if I can start to wiggle my toes, I'm going to be able to start to tap my foot, because I couldn't, I had foot drop and stuff like that. And I carried on trying and trying, and I never give up. That's one thing with me. I never give up. I think it's all about, if you've got a chronic health condition, make sure you record your small wins. When you have a bad day, and we all have them, you can look back and it's a source of encouragement, because you can remember that, actually, do you know what? I did do that, and I did do this, and it was a little bit better. And it's going to be like that again, because everything passes, you know? Just don't get stuck in the lows. Don't dwell on things. Move on.
That's great, not giving up and having faith in yourself and just keep going each day at a time is so important.
Oh yeah. Even when it feels really hard, just know that it's going to pass.
Wonderful. Thank you, Chris. It was lovely to have you here today with all your great knowledge and insight. I hope you can motivate and help more people and give that inspiration to not give up on things and try to be a Superman, definitely.
I'm not.
What an incredible reminder that our greatest challenges can become our most powerful catalysts for change. Chris's journey shows us that no diagnosis has to define our future, and that true healing often begins when we take control of our own well being. Today's story isn't just about MS or health or even transformation. It's about the extraordinary potential that lives within each one of us. Chris showed us that when we dare to take control of our health, miraculous things can happen. Thank you for being part of this conversation. Until then, keep talking, keep listening, and most importantly, keep believing in your power to heal. I'm Vaishali Patil, and this has been Let's Talk, where every voice matters.